everyone, this is Kingrats here. Welcome back to the channel, guys. Back with another NBA playoff analysis video here. I will admit, I haven't been able to keep up with the NBA playoffs right now, so my intel really on the games is sort of limited to just the game articles and recaps. But I have to say that there are probably a couple of takeaways that you could really get right now from the second round playoff series that are currently commencing, and just some interesting storylines that I'm pretty sure most people are probably familiar about, but I just want to basically talk about them anyway. So, number one, I wanted to talk about the Knicks and Celtics series because really the way how this series has progressed over the first two games, in my opinion, it's kind of unimaginable. As a neutral fan for this series, I really thought that the Celtics most likely are going to beat the Knicks no matter what, and the fact that they're down 2-0 is just kind of unacceptable. I mean, the fact that they blew like multiple 20-point leads in the first two games is just absolutely bananas. And the fact that the Knicks are finding ways to win in clutch time is just huge for them, right? And plus, they're going to get back to Madison Square Garden now and are going to be playing games there. So they've got big momentum on home court. I think what's maybe the biggest problem with the Celtics is the fact that maybe some guys are underperforming and the fact that they're probably relying too much on the three ball. I think I read a stat that they set an NBA playoff record for missed threes in game one of this series, and that probably contributed to their collapse in the first game. If the Celtics had maybe probably a little bit more shooting luck, then they certainly would have at least grabbed one of these games, right? But blowing 20-point leads in back-to-back playoff games is definitely more of a maybe something internally happening here. Maybe the Celtics defense is just not up to speed as it was in the past, or just the fact that the Knicks are just getting lucky. I don't really know. I will admit I haven't been able to watch either of the games, so you can take my stuff with a grain of salt if you want, but it just, in my opinion, it really does feel like that the Knicks are somehow exploiting maybe some kind of weakness with the Celtics, and a combination of that with a lack of inefficiency with Boston is probably the reason why the Knicks have a 2-0 lead in this series. It just really is kind of amazing to me that it's gone this way. Moving on now, looking at the Pacers and Cavs series. Also haven't been able to really catch up with this series much, but the fact that the Pacers have a 2-0 series lead kind of isn't too surprising. The games have been relatively close, and I think the biggest difference here is that we're starting to see the Pacers play with the type of game that they had last season that got them very far in the playoffs. That they're playing with speed, they're playing with efficiency, and that they have just a really good scoring touch, and they're getting balanced play from all over the lineup, right? They're basically beating the Cavs in most categories. They're beating them by an extra 5 points on average. They're also setting up, I think, at least 5 more assists. And it's not like one guy's really dominating for them. I think Tyrese Halliburton is averaging like 20 points in this series, 9 assists, which is fantastic. For the Cavs, they've really leaned into Donovan Mitchell, who has tried to do everything himself. I think he's averaging like, 40 points, which is big. But I thought with the Cavs being such a deep roster that they should probably be, I don't know, spreading the wealth a little bit more. That's just kind of my opinion here. But yeah, the fact that the Cavs are down 2-0 is maybe a little bit not too surprising, only because I thought that if they had maybe a little bit more success from guys like DeAndre Hunter and Max Strus or whatnot, that it probably would have helped tip the scales more in their favor. I just think that Indiana's got a great combination of young guys and some good veterans, and that perhaps that's allowed them to just kind of work their way through in this series. Not to mention they are coming off of I think, a conference final appearance from last season, so technically they can use that experience to their advantage here. And maybe Cleveland didn't face too much of a challenge in the regular season, considering they got 64 wins and they had a pretty solid first round series against the Miami Heat that was already depleted as it is. So I think Indiana's just taking advantage of a Cavs team that hasn't really faced much of a challenge all year. And then looking at the Thunder, Nuggets, and Warriors and T-Wolves series, I think what's really unique about these two series in particular is that you really can see the talented division between the two sides. So from OKC and Nuggets point of view, you can see how OKC is just such an efficient offensive machine in the NBA, and how they are just getting great contributions from everybody on this roster. And I think they set like a playoff record for points and a half and that was huge against the Nuggets. For Denver, they're still kind of relying more on guys like Jokic and Murray to really kind of carry the offense. The depth has always been an issue for them across the season, and of course, moving on from Mike Malone at the end of the regular season, I think was probably a bit of a hit to their coaching philosophy, but then again, maybe that was a bit of a benefit to them because they did get out of the first round against the Clippers. I'm just not really sure. OKC probably will win this series no matter what. It just depends on how long the series actually plays out. But yeah, I just think that it would take a Herculean effort from a guy like Jokic, for example, to carry the Nuggets through in this series, considering how strongly balanced and fortified the Thunder are. And then if we look at the Warriors and Timberwolves series now, what I really think is the difference here is that you've got pure star power in like guys like Curry and Butler versus a more well-rounded, balanced roster with a lot of high-end talent in the T-Wolves. I just think that Minnesota, what they proved in the first round was that they showed that a really well-balanced roster with strong talent can beat a team that just has purely superstars and almost no decent depth, right? And that being the Lakers, for example. And I think basically the Warriors have the exact same thing going on here, where they have a couple of good superstars, but they don't really have necessarily the strong amount of depth. They do have some young guys like Moses Moody, Brandon Podziemski, for example, that can be good, but I don't think that they are necessarily equivalent to Nikhil Alexander Walker or Dante DiVincenzo, Julius Randle, like those kind of supporting guys that the T Wolves have. I do think that in hindsight, if you went back to the Karl Anthony Towns trade that we had in the offseason between Minnesota and New York, it has really benefited both teams. New York got the big man that they wanted that was offensive on the floor, and for Minnesota, they were able to really kind of clean up the 4 and 5 and get themselves some really valuable depth. And it did take some time to develop, but ultimately it started to materialize towards the end of the season, and they look very good now. That's really all I can say about these series at the moment. It's very interesting to see how things go. If you watched my original playoff prediction video, I think I had almost the entire first round completed outside of minus, I don't know, 2 series. Of course, the play-in tournament didn't necessarily go my way, but I did have most of my predictions correct for round one. But round two is not looking good for me. But yeah, anyway, I just wanted to share my thoughts. Thank you guys so much for watching. Please don't forget to leave a like, subscribe to the channel for more content if you like this one, and I'll see you all in the next video.